Well, we're back again, and thank you for joining me tonight in Walking in Spirit and Truth. I am John Craig, and my wife Sandi and I pastor Life of Worship here in Amarillo, Texas, and we're with you on Walking in Spirit and Truth tonight. See a whole bunch of you guys already hanging out there in the chat room waiting for the time to start, and so I want to say hello to everybody that's been in there. Al, of course, is first in the room. Love you too, brother. And Eddie and Tammy and going down the list, got Lou Ann in there and Terry and my goodness, that was a very loud car that was out there. Who else do we have in the room chatting? Did I miss anybody? So far, that's everybody that's checked in. So it's great to see you guys. And yes, Chag Sameach Yom Teruah. And it is that day. It's a glorious day and a glorious time as we enter into the 7th month. Can you believe that, here on the priestly calendar? And which means we're going to have a time of celebration, Yom Teruah. We're going to have our celebration tomorrow evening here at Life of Worship. We're going to be right here. And look behind me. We have the stage taken out, and if you were with me during prayer on Monday, you would have seen that it was just a mess up there with all the cords and everything laid out. And Sandi came in here and she put it all back together, except we don't have the platform to stand on anymore. But she did an awesome job putting it and organizing it and making it looking really nice. So yeah, so we're going to be gathering here at Life of Worship at 6:30. Now, I'm trying to figure out how to actually start the stream and how we're going to do it, because I know the folks here locally that, we always like to gather and eat. And so we're probably going to be gathering and eating. And I'm not sure if when I want to start the stream. I'll probably start the stream after we get done eating. So it might be like around 7:00 when we actually start some time of worship, and we'll have a message that'll follow that. I haven't put all those details together. Just stay tuned. Watch. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. And if you're subscribed and you hit that notification bell, every time we go live, you will get a notification on it. So, but anyway, can you believe it? I think it's really amazing. So, and it's a countdown time. So Yom Teruah, and then a week from Friday is Yom Kippur, and then the following Tuesday evening, going into the following Wednesday, Sukkot, September 29th, going into October 1st on our calendar we're used to. But yeah, Sukkot. 8 great days, 8 days of being in his presence, and great time. Oh, it just seems like so much has happened. Well, a lot has happened here at Life of Worship. Lots happened even since we last met on Tuesday for Walking in Spirit and Truth. And you say, what do you mean? What do you mean a lot's happened? Well, we have pretty much, I'm going to say 75 to 80%, probably 80%. About 80% of all the equipment and furnishings and supplies and all that sort of thing moved out and put into storage. So we have very little left. I asked our landlord, I said, hey, we're ready to be out by the end of the month. And so if you want to let that other group go ahead and come in and start working and let this close out our final month. And she said, nope, you need to finish out your lease. So we're actually going to be here in this location, and since we're going to be paying for our rent in October, then except for the time of Sukkot, we'll still have a few more meetings here in this place, and then we'll be out. And praise Yah, He will have a place for us. I have several people asking me, have you found a place yet? What do you know? Do you have a place ready to go? No, we don't have a place ready to go, but the Father does. And we're just waiting on His timing and favor and the blessing of Yah with all of that. And we're also praying for one that we will not have to do a lot of work to. I think that would be a real blessing, not having to do that. So we are in Enoch. We're still in Enoch here, Walking in Spirit of Truth. And we have several things to discuss because it's an adventure. Just like if you've been following us at Life of Worship, it's an adventure, isn't it? I'm just saying, I'm having fun. I'm having fun with it. Please have fun with me on it. Okay. It's sorry, zip, zip, zip. So it's not just so much that it's an adventure in Enoch, but life should be an adventure. And like in this last week, when we were talking about the Torah portion, I guess what resonated in me is to make sure that in life, in all that I do, and all the things that take place, and all that we set our hands to do, we should be doing it with joy. So, if you lack joy, there is a vessel of joy that never empties. That's just for you. How about that? Because it flows with the river of life that comes out of your belly. Out of your belly shall flow rivers of living water. That's where the joy is. That's where the joy comes out. It just keeps on bubbling and bubbling. And you say, well, I'm feeling kind of dry. Well, come on, Father, fill us up. Fill us up to the overflow. And so, all right. I sit here and pause for a second because I'm just thinking, here we are going through Enoch. And, there's so many different things in Enoch that kind of echoes about our generation. And I'm not sure in this reading today if we're actually going to have any of those echoes. We might have some, there might be some echoes. There might be some things that resonate with our current events, with this week's, if we get there. I don't know. But nevertheless, I was just kind of thinking, there's some crazy stuff going on in the world. Just saying. All right, that's enough of current events for you today. We're going to go ahead and get into Enoch, and so I would love for you to, if you've got your version, I don't know what version you're using, but whatever version you're using, open it up, and we left off in Enoch chapter 58. Chapter 58, and we were talking about Leviathan and Behemoth, and we were talking about those monsters. I was just like, I got to have more information. So I did. I looked up some more information. Not that it really was very helpful at this point in time, but it was just kind of interesting. I'm still trying to get my head around it. Well, what are you talking about? Well, let's go to Isaiah 58 and go where we left off. And by the way, with Sukkot just right around the corner, as you're going there, did I say Isaiah? No, Enoch 58. Isaiah 58 is pretty cool too. But no, Enoch 58. And we started out last week in Enoch 58, and there was this event that took place with Enoch. And it said, it begins this chapter, this part of the parable. It's in the book of parables within the book of Enoch. And we're in the third, I believe it's the third parable. And it says, in the 500th year and in the 7th month, on the 14th day of the month of the lifetime of Enoch, in that parable, I saw that the heaven of heavens shook, that it shook violently, and the powers of El Elyon and the angels, thousands and thousands and myriads were agitated with great agitation. And when I looked, the Ancient of Days was sitting on the throne of his glory, while the angels and the Kedoshim were standing around him. A great trembling came upon me, and terror seized me. My loins were bowed down and loosened, and my mind was dissolved, and I fell on my face. Right? Okay, so there was this big event that took place. But when did the big event take place? It was on the day before Sukkot. So I think I mentioned this last week, but it also makes me always think about calendar parallels, because let me give you a calendar parallel. Last year on October 7th, there was an invasion of these Palestinian terrorists that came up out of Gaza into Israel, and they took a bunch of people captive, and the war began. And that was on October 7th last year. Do you know what day that was? If you take it to the priestly calendar, that day, it happened to be on a Shabbat. First off, it was Shabbat. On the Hillel calendar, it was like the last day of Sukkot on the Hillel calendar. But it was a Shabbat, And did you know that October 7th was the exact same day that the Yom Kippur War began on the priestly calendar? So that's why I think there's amazing little different parallels on the calendar, that when there's a specific date given within Scripture, it's always kind of interesting to look at and say, okay, an event happened here and it corresponds to this event over there. And are there other events that also took place on that same day? I think there were some other events that actually did take place on that exact same day in the past, in history, within the Scriptures. And I just don't recall them off the top of my head, but that's two, I say two that are within our current events. So what about this year during the feast season? What about October 9th? I'm going to break that down. Been gathering information, trying to digest it, and also to be able to give it my understanding of it, because there's a lot to really study out on these things. So anyway, so here's this. So we have this concept here, and it was the day before Sukkot, and Enoch has this vision that's going on in the heavens, and he sees, these myriads and myriads of angels and these holy ones and all of that around the throne, and a great shaking taking place. Of course, what's very interesting about that is that great shaking that's taking place is, I don't think it's so much mattered to like Michael or the other archangels or even the other angels. I don't think it really bothered them that much. And we talked about it where, Hebrews, where it says anything that can be shaken will be shaken. And that is not a terror or something that those in the heavenly realm are frightened of. But there's something that happened with Enoch that it was for those of us with human bodies. He passed out. So I just think about the signs of the heavens and the signs of the sun, the moon, and the stars, and like what Luke 21 talks about, and I think we reviewed that a little bit, and I just think about that many people's hearts will fail them for fear during that time. And so I just kind of think, wow, I can't help not but think that we're just living in should be very sober, very sobering days. And so, all right, so here we go. That's what I was thinking about. Let's go back in to verse 6 now, because we talked about several of those different things. But now I want to recap here from verse 6 through the end of the chapter, because that's pretty much where we left off last week and kind of ran out of time. But we had that it says that day has been prepared for the elect as a covenant, and for sinners as an inquisition. So it says that day. All right. So that day, well, what day was it for Enoch? It was on the 14th day of the 7th month, that day. And when you hear the words and the terms about the day of Yahweh, the day of the Lord, or you have the day, the great day, in that day, all those type of phrases, you know what I'm talking about within scriptures. And it's very specific, and it's talking about, honestly, the day, which is not necessarily a 24-hour day, but that time period that begins where Yah begins to reveal himself with almost like this final push, like this big push, because he's got to get everybody's attention, because the end of the age is at hand. And because the end of the age is at hand, therefore, he's got to do anything and everything that possibly can take place in order to shake mankind, all these things in the temporal realm, to get people to come to their senses, so that we come to our senses and escape the snare of Hasatan is held as captive to do his will. That he would cause us to really turn and repent, because all the different things that he's done within our lifetimes of in relative ease for most people living in the United States and in the West. I know we have tough times, and we know that there's times that our month is longer than our paycheck and our bank account and all that. And sometimes that's how a lot of us live. It's like, there's nothing here for another week, and a week and needs a full week and before we get paid again. And we're trying to figure out how we're going to put gas in the car and eat and deal with some of these issues. I mean, what do you do when you run out of deodorant during the time? There's absolutely zero money in the bank. I mean, what do you do? I mean, seriously, these are thoughts that people have, and maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm just the ones like, I hope I got enough deodorant to just stretch and last. I remember there's been times that Sandy has taken her little pinky nail and she scooped out the little crevices of the deodorant thing in order to use the very last bit that she could. I mean, you go through those time periods in life, and we laugh about it now, and yet we might find ourselves in the same position. And some would say, well, deodorant is not something you don't necessarily need. I'm pretty self-conscious though. And I'm thinking, I'd still want to, kind of like those hygiene things, but okay. Nevertheless, let's go on. We're walking. So that day has been prepared for the elect as a covenant, and for sinners as an inquisition. In that day shall be distributed, and it says 2 monsters, or you could say 2 beasts. Like 2 beasts. Makes me wonder. Like 2 beast systems, 2 beasts, 2 monsters. Neither one is good. It's not like you want to side with one or, forsake the other, or run from the one and try to embrace the other. I mean, if you think about a beast that you don't, a monster. I mean, it's something that we really don't want. I mean, you think about running into a bear in the woods. What do you want to do? You want to go the other direction and just hope that bear doesn't follow you, or it has any cubs, because you're going to look at you like, stay away. You're intruding. You're getting too close to my cubs. And so, Lou, there's somebody else, I guess, is doing Sukkot, not us. That's not the priestly calendar. This is Yom Teruah. This is the Feast of Trumpets right now. Yom Kippur is a week from Friday. So, okay. And then Sukkot following after that. All right. So going back to this. So that day, so these 2 monsters come up, and they're going to be, they're split up. And the monster, or the female beast, whose name is Leviathan, dwelling in the depths of the sea above the springs of waters. And so, I'm gonna read something here in a little bit about that, and then this other male monster whose name is Behemoth, and I looked at some other kind of translations about this. It says that he possesses with his breast, and my version here says which possesses on his breast the invisible wilderness. His name is Dandayin. In the east of the garden, where the elect and the righteous will dwell. So it really doesn't give us a lot. It actually kind of gives some confusion, and that's why I wanted to step back and kind of define this a little bit for us before we went too far. So I went. What did I do? I found some interesting writings in the Jewish Encyclopedia. So, I mean, because honestly, there's something, still within the Jewish culture that's been preserved that really kind of gives us some good information that helps us give us that Hebraic understanding that a lot of times we lack here in the West, because we were been raised on Greek principles, and we need to have that flip over to continue to cause our brain to think Hebraically. So the Jewish people have done that. They've helped us because they preserved Hebraic thought in much of their understanding and their writings and their studies and stuff. And so I draw upon that information all the time. So here we have over in the Jewish Encyclopedia about Leviathan and Behemoth. And it says names of gigantic beasts or monsters described in Job. I think that's Job 15. All right, we're just going to go on. The former is from a root denoting coil, twist. That means, so now we're talking about Leviathan. Leviathan, so kind of giving, what does it mean? Where's it come from? Where's it, the root of the word coil or twist. The latter is the plural form of behemah, meaning beast. So behemoth is how it's translated into English, and some translations actually call the behemoth like a hippopotamus, or the Egyptian form of Pehenemu, which is a water ox. But honestly, those are that's really a poor translation. So it's neither of those about the behemoth. But the Leviathan, let's go back to Leviathan and see what it says here. The behemoth, he is the first or the chief of the ways of God. And it says, he that made him makes sport with him. And then it says, he that made him can make his sword to approach unto him. That's out of the Septuagint. Or the mountains bring him forth food, where all the beasts of the day do play. And obviously the behemoth is represented as this primeval beast, or the king of all the animals of the dry land. And one place I saw was like the beast of the Southland, and like a beast of Egypt, possibly. But I don't think that we know of have any idea of what type of beast this is. Now, the rabbis think that the behemoth was actually created on the fifth day, and was the first. So it's like the chief of the beasts, or the first of the beasts that were created. And so therefore it has been placed on land in the wilderness, and has 1,000 mountains, like the cattle on 1,000 hill, like the 1,000 mountains by which he can get food from. And it's a big creature that was made. So very big. We're going to get to figure out why. What's the purpose of these? Because you think about it, when you think Hebraically, okay, here's a beast, but what's the purpose, right? What is the purpose? Why do we have such a thing? What would y'all want? What is the function of these two beasts, the behemoth and the Leviathan? And so obviously the behemoth is represented as the primeval beast, the king of all the animals of the land, while Leviathan is the king of all those of the water, both alike unconquerable by man. And it suggests that behemoth and Leviathan were the two primeval monsters corresponding to Tiamat, the abyss, or in the Hebrew word tehom. And so anyway, that's a little bit of a foundation. It says it's likely that the Leviathan and the behemoth were originally referred to in Habakkuk 2:15. The destruction of the behemoth, or the beast, shall make them afraid. Shall make them afraid, or shall make thee afraid. It just depends on the version that you're looking at. So it's something, in other words, these two beasts are to be killed at some point in time in the future. And when these beasts are killed, that perhaps the them or the thee, or is to cause people to be afraid, or perhaps the enemies of Yah to be afraid, because they are supposed to be indestructible. In fact, the tail of the behemoth is supposed to be like the cedar tree. So these are really big. The Leviathan is supposed to be also just absolutely huge, and needs the whole Mediterranean Sea to live within. Other rabbinical literature talks about the Leviathan being created on the fifth day. Originally, that Yah produced a male and female Leviathan, but lest in multiplying the species would destroy the world, he slew the female, reserving her flesh for the banquet that will be given to the righteous in the advent of the Messiah. That's in BB 74a. And then it says the enormous size of the Leviathan is thus illustrated by Rabbi Yohanan, from whom proceeded nearly all the Haggadot concerning this monster. Once we went in a ship and saw a fish which put its head out of the water. He had horns upon which was written, I am the meanest of the meanest creatures that inhabit the sea. I am 300 miles in length and enter this day into the jaws of the Leviathan. When the Leviathan is hungry, reports Rabbi Dimi, in the name of Rabbi Yohanan, he sends forth from his mouth a heat so great as to make all the waters of the deep boil, and he would put his head into paradise. No living creature could endure the odor of him. So he's smelly. And then it says his abode in the Mediterranean Sea, and the waters of the Jordan fall into his mouth. So of course, you know how the rabbis go with their, their illustrations. It's not meaning that they're stating factory things. They're trying to give a parable understanding of, this is a creature, and that's supernatural in strength, and is big. It's very large, the largest of all the sea creatures that are out there. So let's go back to Enoch. So that's that's a little bit of the understanding of them. Oh yeah, let's go in the Messianic times. It says the Leviathan is prominent in the Haggadic literature. I didn't practice that word. Sorry. In a connection with the advent of the Messiah, and over in Job, it says, and the pious ones shall make a banquet of it. Rabbi Yohanan says that at the time of the resurrection, a banquet will be given by Yah to the righteous, at which the flesh of the Leviathan will be served. Even the hunting of the Leviathan will be a source of great enjoyment to the righteous. Those, says Rabbi Yudin Bar Simon, who have not taken part in pagan sports, will be allowed to participate in the hunting of the Leviathan and of the behemoth. And Gabriel will be charged with the killing of the monster, but he will not be able to accomplish his task without the help of Yah, who will divide the monster with his sword, according to another Haggadah. When Gabriel fails, it says Yah will order the Leviathan to engage in battle with the ox of the mountain, the Shor Habar, which will result in death to both of them. Not only will the flesh of the Leviathan furnish food for the table of the righteous, but there will be a great supply of it in the markets of Jerusalem. From the hide of the Leviathan, Yah will make tents for the pious of the first rank, girdles for those of the second, chains for those of the third, necklaces of those of the fourth, and the remainder of the hide will be spread on the walls of Jerusalem, and the whole world will be illuminated by its brightness. So I don't know, there's some interesting fable-like tales around it. It's interesting that they consider that these creatures will be the meat for the great banquet day. So I'm thinking, well, they must be clean, right? Fins and scales. It's got to have, a split hoof and chew the cud and that type of thing. Behemoth, right? So I don't know, some interesting things. Just put in the notes what you think about it. But that's okay. So they have this, and it's in. So this behemoth is in Dindayan, in the east of the garden, and seems to be in an area inhabited also with the righteous, east of the garden. And well, it goes on, it says, where he received it from my ancestor. Oh, in other words, that land where he dwells, he received it from Enoch's ancestor, who was a man from Adam, the first of men, whom Yahweh Sabaoth made. And then I asked of another angel to show me the power of those monsters or those beasts, how they became separated and how they came separated on the same day, one in the depths of the sea and one in the dry desert. And he said, you, son of Adam, are here desirous of understanding secret things. Sounds kind of like Yoda. Oh, my young Jedi, you desire understanding of secret things. And the angel of peace who was with me said, these two monsters are by the power of Elohim prepared to become food, that the punishment of Elohim may not be in vain. Then shall children be slain with their mothers, and sons with their fathers. And when the punishment of Yahweh Tsabaoth shall continue upon them, shall it continue, that the punishment of Yahweh Tsabaoth may not take place in vain. After that, judgment shall exist with mercy and long-suffering. So, what is it telling us? Lou, I just saw that. I'll eat veggies, thank you. But what if it's grilled just perfectly? Just think. Just think. What if it's just perfectly, just tender, like a wonderful fillet? Oh, okay. Filet mignon. Okay. I like filet mignon. Voila. Okay, that's very good. Okay, so so there's something about these monsters becoming revealed, slain, destroyed, eaten at the banqueting table at the time of Messiah in that day. And yeah, Terry, it did say that it stinks. So remember what we said? We read over there, it really stinks among all the other fish, but maybe not when you grill it up. Maybe when you grill it up, it's kind of like a good clean fish, like cod. Okay. And the behemoth is, like I say, a filet mignon. All right, and then but those, so they become food, and Yahweh prepared to become food, and that the punishment of Elohim may not be in vain. And then it goes on and it talks about these people that are slaughtered, this punishment. But see, remember, we're talking about the end of an age. So at the end of an age, which is ushering the new age that's coming in, well, what would that new age be? Well, that would be the messianic reign of Yeshua the Messiah, would it not? Because if we're coming at the end of the age of man, when I say the age of man, the age of those 6,000 years, and then which we've been waiting to be fulfilled, and then Messiah comes, and Messiah then brings us through the next age of 1,000 years of ruling and reigning here on the earth. But in order to go through that process, remember, you may have heard me talking about this in the past. I'm sure Terry remembers about that the time of great tribulation is a door. It's just a door to get to the other side. And as we know in the seven assemblies, right? There's one assembly, Philadelphia, that says nothing about trials and tribulations. However, the other 6 congregations walk through trials and tribulation. But what about those that are outside the kingdom? See, I think there's this preserving. There is the preservation of the bride, but then those that are not the bride, that are the wedding guests, what do they go through? I think they go through great tribulation because the fullness of repentance hasn't been manifest in their life. They haven't received the fullness of it in order to fully receive the kingdom. And so the time of great tribulation is that time of great shaking. And for Enoch, he passed out when he saw it. I mean, that's pretty severe. But what about these others here at the end of chapter 58? It talks about these other people that are punished by Yah, because these are the people that don't repent. These are the ones that shake their fist at Yah. These are the ones, and they have their families and everything. And because of failure in parenting, then the children suffer the same penalty of the parents. It's pretty sobering, right? In fact, a kind of an example of this, I ran across a video. I was really shocked. I mean, literally, I was really shocked. And this mother and son were each on their individual. Well, the mother was on a bicycle, and the son, I think, was on a scooter. Yeah, I think he was on a scooter. I don't think he was on a little bicycle. I think he was on a scooter. And he's on a sidewalk, and she's, riding in the street by the curb, and they're riding, side by side. And a doorbell camera sees them come into the picture, and at the corner where the sidewalk, meets the sidewalk that goes up to the front door of the house, there's a United States flag that's planted at the corner of the yard, right there, right next to the sidewalk. And this child grabs the flag and just rips it out of the ground. In fact, he couldn't rip it out of the ground very easily. He had to back up and grab it and then rip it hard out of the ground, as mom stops and watches and says nothing, and the child just flips that thing and throws it to the ground. And then they continue on their little journey down the street. And I think, when you see something like that, now that desecration of the American flag, we've all had our, how to properly treat the American flag, growing up, and especially for most of us that, grew up in schools in the maybe 60s and 70s, going into the 80s, and the things that, you respect the flag, right? That type of thing. We were shocked. Anybody an American that might burn the American flag, remember that when that was happening during the Vietnam War, or any other time over the few decades, we've seen that. But nevertheless, that demonstration of that evil. And then you think what we just read here, then shall children be slain with their mothers and sons with their fathers. And when the punishment of Yahweh Sabaoth, verse 14, shall continue, upon them shall it continue, that the punishment of Yahweh Sabaoth may not take place in vain. So in other words, it's like no one escapes, that the judgment is fulfilled, and it's very sad. And yet we have these evidence. It's like I don't know the young man's name, but he had, I think he had like broken into an apartment or something where there was an 80-something, 90-something year old, I don't know if it was a man or a woman, that he beat. And the police came, and when the police got there, he shot and killed a police officer, and then he jumped from the third floor window to escape. And the police caught him. And when they brought him into the courtroom, they had to mask him because he kept spitting and biting at the officers, because his hands are tied up. And the guy had, like, his eyes were both swollen on the top of this mask. I didn't even know they had face masks like that, like Hannibal. I mean, it was different than the Hannibal mask, but eyes all swollen and that type of thing. And of course, the people waiting in the courtroom at this arraignment, are included his parents, who just began to cry and just shout out because of the severe beating that this man had taken. Well, I'm telling you, they were probably, well, I know there's police brutality, but sometimes the police have to simply subdue a captive, their prisoner, in order to get some type of compliance. And considering he's biting and spitting and that sort of thing, they put this mask on there. It's really like completely demonic. And they were, and here a whole family's life has been changed forever. The family of this police officer who was shot and killed by this, and they were upset that this person, who will spend life in prison for murder and for what he did to this elderly person, and they have no remorse, knowing, they think, oh, their life has been changed forever because the son is just wild. And so the children be slain with their mothers and sons with their fathers. And I think, it's sad as a parent who's walked through different things. And, this whole thing where I think in Jonathan's case, had we had $250,000, we could have provided a proper defense. But then you have those where everything there. I mean, this is not one of those things where there's like, we need to find a perpetrator in order to match this crime. So they go pick someone out of the crowd and say, oh, everything matches DNA, et cetera, and then this is our one, and they imprison the wrong person. This is not the case. It's hard on a family, and then yet on the other side, there's this whole other family whose life has changed forever because dad's gone, shot in the line of duty. You think about these times of judgment that are, and then it says after that, judgment shall exist with mercy and long suffering. And so So a new age of the rule of the Messiah is, I think it's referring to the rule of Messiah, an age by which judgment exists with mercy and with patience and long suffering, and so and that's what happens. So everything that we're seeing, and I just gave you two different instances about current events type of thing that have been taking place, and when we put those pieces together and then we look at this, it's like, this is craziness and it's demonic. It is just viciousness and animalistic and beast-like and like monsters that dwell among us, and such agitation, everything shaking that can be shaken, and I don't think we've even seen the start of it, but we're getting the hints of it, and we're seeing that. But why? Because it's to get us through the door to the other side. And I believe with all my heart that's why we press in, because those who dwell in the secret place of the Most High dwell. Right? What's it say? Dwell. Sandy's got it completely memorized. Psalm 91. Let me pull that out, because I'll just completely destroy it. And so she's probably, if she's listening, John, listen, I'm telling it to you right now. Listen, he who dwells in the shelter of the Most High will abide in the shadow of the Almighty. I will say to Yahweh, my refuge and my fortress, my Elohim, in whom I trust. For it is he who delivers you from the snare of the trapper and from the deadly pestilence, and he will cover you with his pinions, and under his wings you may seek refuge. His faithfulness is a shield and bulwark. You'll not be afraid of the terror by night, or by the arrows that fly by day, or of the pestilence that stalks in darkness, or of the destruction that lays waste at noon. 1,000 will fall at your side, and 10,000 at your right hand, but it shall not approach you. And you will only look on with your eyes and see the recompense of the wicked. For you have made Yahweh my refuge, even the Most High, your dwelling place. No evil will befall you, nor will any plague come near your tent. For he will give his angels charge concerning you, to guard you in all your ways. They will bear you up in their hands, lest you strike your foot against a stone. You will tread upon the lion and the cobra, the young lion and the serpent, and you will trample down. Because he has loved me, therefore I will deliver him. I will set him securely on high, because he has known my name. He will call upon me, and I will answer him, and I will be with him in trouble, and I will rescue him. You can say her too, and honor him or her. And with long life, I will satisfy him or her, and let him or her behold my Yeshua, my salvation. So I just read that whole thing through. Why? Because when the monsters arise, we need to know from whence our help comes, right? Okay. So 59, chapter 15. We did get to 59. So last week I kind of teased it, and then we didn't even get there. So 59, remember, this is a parable. So we're in this parable phase, and where it says, then another angel who proceeded with me spoke to me and showed me the first and last secrets in heaven above, and in the depths of the earth, in the extremities of heaven, and in the foundation of it, and in the receptacles of the winds. He showed me how their ruachot, or their spirits, were divided, and how they were balanced, and how both the springs and the winds were numbered according to the force of their spirit, or the ruach. He showed me the power of the moon's light, and its power is a just one, as well as the division of the stars according to the respective names. See, there's the names of the stars. That's why it's important to know the names of the stars, because they tell the story of heaven. It tells the story of our lives, our past and our future, right? So every division is divided, that the lightning flashes, that its troops immediately obey, and that a cessation takes place during thunder in continuance of its sound. Nor are the thunders and the lightning separated, neither do they both of them move with one ruach, yet they are not separated. So, all right. So, what is this whole idea that there's this spirit? Because ruach it goes with spirit, but remember, it also goes with breath, but it also goes with wind. Hey, there's Daniel. I see Daniel in there. Good to see you, Daniel. It goes with wind, like so. These spirits are like a wind. We talked about that. Well, here at Life of Worship we have. And I think it talks about that over in Hebrews chapter 1, maybe. Okay. There's a couple other references about um, these winds. So anyway, there's these like lightning is a separate spirit than thunder is, and yet the two always go together and they are never separated. I mean, it's very interesting. He's given it in this parable form, and he's talking about things. Um, these springs and winds and forces, forces of nature, so we might say forces of nature, but Enoch calls them forces of the spirit, forces of the wind, forces of the ruach, not capital R in ruach, but it as if they have as if they're personified, as if they have a personage, as if there is control by a particular being of a type. But again, it's kind of a parable. And why is Enoch telling us this? Because he wants to give us understanding in because I kind of think there have been time periods, different during different millennia where there was not a lot of understanding, like not a lot of scientific understanding how things work, how nature, how y'all's creation works together. Well, this is kind of like what chapter 59 is talking about, that it's every division is divided, that the lightning flashes, that its troops immediately obey, and that a cessation takes place during thunder in continuance of sound. So it's like, so in other words, think about a lightning bolt. I mean, it shines and stops, and the thunder, it follows it, and with a continuance of sound. It says, nor are the thunder and the lightning separated, neither do both of them move with one ruach, yet they are not separated. For when the lightning lightens, the thunder sounds, and the ruach at a proper period pauses, making an equal division between them. For the receptacle upon which their periods depend is as sand. Each of them at a proper season is restrained with a bridle and turned by the power of the ruach, which thus propels according to the spacious extent of the earth. What did he just say? Okay, think about it. How far is that lightning? And if it's really close, the thunder is immediate. But if it's a long ways away, hearing the sound of the thunder, there's a great spaciousness or distance, right? He's just explaining that you might see the effect of the lightning because the light travels faster than the sound. Isn't it interesting that Enoch's telling us about some physics here? And the ruach, likewise, of the sea is potent and strong, and a strong power causes it to ebb. So it's driven forwards and scattered against the mountains of the earth. And the ruach, so now he's talking about the tide and the waves. So the mountains of the earth. So think about the coastal areas that are not just like nice beaches where the waves just come in and they just kind of crash on the beach and they go back out. And some places have bigger waves than other places, and depending on if there's a storm surge or whatever. But what about those places where there's big cliffs and rocks and where the waves come in and just crash upon it? But there's an ebb and a flow that takes place. And he says, it's part of the spirit in which y'all made it. If you want to use it in that term, like the essence by which y'all made it. And scattered against the mountains of the earth. The ruach of the frost has its angel. In the ruach of hail, there's a good angel. The ruach of snow ceases in its strength, and a solitary ruach is in it, which ascends from it like vapor, and it's called refrigeration. Or shall we say it's cold? Yeah, it's cold. They put that word refrigeration. It'd be interesting to see what another version said. But nevertheless, I mean, there's so the essence of these different elements within creation is really what he's talking about. And 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 it says the ruach also of mist dwells with him in the receptacles, but it has a receptacle to itself. In other words, the mist comes from its own place, and he uses the term receptacle or this bowl or this vial or whatever. It has its own originating place. So remember, it's a parable. He's separating. This is different than the snow. This is different than thunder and lightning. This is different than these other things. Then mist comes from this other place. For its progress is in splendor, in light and in darkness, in winter and in summer. Its receptacle is bright, and it is an angel. Isn't that interesting? Or a Melachim. It's a messenger of. So, right. So the abode of the Ruach of dew is in the extremities of heaven, in connection with the receptacles of rain. And its progress is in winter and in summer. The cloud produced by it, and the cloud of the mist becomes united. One gives to the other, and when the Ruach of rain is in motion, from its receptacle, angels come and open its receptacle, bring it forth. Then likewise it is sprinkled over all the earth, and it forms a union with every kind of water on the ground. And for the waters that remain in the ground as nourishment of the earth, from El Elyon, who is in heaven. Upon this account, therefore, there is a regulation in the quantity of rain which the angels receive. These things I saw, all of them, even paradise. So what did he do? We just kind of took this little pause, kind of within all these times of judgment, these times of the things, and talking about the elements of earth that we see, and he kind of gives some description to it, and he basically he just told us that in Yah's creation, he's given certain angels charge over certain things as well. Isn't that interesting too? And because, okay, what about this thought? Boy, I'm getting close to time. So what about in this thought? When Yah has, when the people in the land are obedient, and they're bringing in their tithes, they're obedient to the commandments, they're going to Jerusalem on the feast days, they're keeping the Shabbats and all of that. I mean, they're raising their children according to Torah, and they're living in blessing. And then when they start to walk away from the commandments of Yah, then what is the next thing that takes place? The next thing that takes place is they turn their back on Yah. Well, then the rains stop. Well, is it creation that just kind of changes its pattern? Or is it because there is a supernatural influence upon the clouds that bring the rain and all of the different elements that cause the earth to produce? And is it supernatural because Yah, with his word stops it, but with his word he starts it? Yes, you can say that. Or he likes to have his creation involved in his works. And maybe we could say yes to both of those things. And so there we go. That's the end of 59 and some different things. Now, I just have a couple minutes. I know you guys are talking about what's going on in Israel. So let me just kind of put a couple thoughts in here while I get the outro ready to go. So, all right, couple thoughts real quick. So Israel looks like they're getting ready to move in to Lebanon, and they have some type of technology. And what it looks like is that there's a bunch of pager cell phones, that type of thing, or distribute among Hezbollah that were all built in Taiwan. And in their batteries, they put explosives within those batteries. And at a particularly time to all go off at the same time, or by some type of electronic trigger, these cell phones began to explode in people's pockets, their hands, close to them. A lot of people, it's been about 8 people that have died. Maybe 3,000 to 4,000 people are injured and in the hospital because of these explosions. And there's been some Iranians as well, Iranian leadership also having the same cell phones. And these all came from Taiwan. Not good, because because now we have the Taiwan China thing, and now it brings in Russia, it brings in Iran. We got these elements here, and now Lebanon, Hezbollah, and it looks like Israel is using this to perhaps prepare the way, destroy the communication of the armies of Hezbollah, and soften up the ground so they can invade and create a buffer zone in southern Lebanon. And in the meantime, then we have this thing apparently going on with the UN wanting to divide the land. And all day today, Israel has been saying, do we go now? Are we going to go now? Are we going to go in? Are we in agreement yet? And so that's what's happening. And that's what I see is happening. And guess what? It's Yom Teruah, and these things are taking place. We're at the end, guys. Let's keep our eyes open. This is really big because here we are, Yom Teruah. We're here, and now we're looking at the next step, major battles in the Middle East. Wow. What a day it is. Thank you for joining me here on Walking in Spirit of Truth. Until next time, Shalom.
If you missed today's show or want to watch it again or want to tell someone where they can watch this episode, go to lamnetwork.tv where you will find this show and all the other live Lamb show archives in the on-demand section of the website. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to tell someone about the Messianic Lamb Network. We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussions, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the lamnetwork.tv website. I'm Sandi Craig, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.